Hello, it's Sarah Clark of Create Move Pilates, and I am here with this week's episode. I guess you can call them episodes of Pilates Talk. Pilates Talk is the weekly live Q&A that I give every week, giving you the opportunity to talk with your Pilates instructor. Like I said, am Sarah Clark of Create Move Pilates, and Create Move Pilates offers a free monthly Pilates practice calendar, and I consider that to be the classes that goes along with my Facebook group, which is the Create Move Pilates online studio. And this is your chance to talk with your teacher kind of like you would after class. So I like to simulate the in real life experience as much as possible. And I am really excited to be getting back into Pilates Talk. We took a little bit of a break during the Create Move Pilates season break, but we are back and live with more Pilates Q&As. Before we begin, I want to mention that I'm going to be giving a free workshop on Pilates, breath, and core in the Create Move Pilates online studio on this Friday at, I believe, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, because I'm a Cali girl and I always work in Cali time. I tried to give this workshop over the weekend. I had a couple tech issues and I decided to make it more easily and readily available to you. So if you were thinking about taking that workshop before, you have a second chance. Today, so for Pilates Talk, I always ask for questions beforehand in the Create Move Pilates online studio because I know that not everybody can make it to Pilates Talk live. And one of the questions that I received this week was about doing Pilates with a herniated disc. And this is a reason that a lot of people come to Pilates is because their doctor recommends it after they have suffered from a herniated disc. So I just want to talk a little bit about this. A herniated disc and the type of herniated disc I'm going to be talking about today is a lumbar spine herniated disc. And your lumbar spine is at the base and it curves towards the front of the body here, and it is kind of like our biggest curve towards the front of the body, and it's the most common place for a herniated disc to occur. They also can happen in the neck, but it's really common for them to be in the low back. It's also common for the herniated disc to kind of bend and kind of increase this curve. And so what happens is that between each vertebra, there's a disc. And within this disc, there's a little bit of fluid in order to kind of provide cushion for your spine. And what happens is that the herniated disc will kind of push the spine kind of pushes that disc forward, or actually back in this direction, and then that fluid kind of gets pushed out in that direction as well, and then that pushes into the spinal cord, which has a lot of nerve endings in it, and then what happens is that those nerve endings get pushed on and it's incredibly uncomfortable. So what has to happen after a herniated disc is that you have to rest quite a bit, but when you're ready to come back into movement, and that means that you have a doctor telling you that you are ready for some movement and you've been approved by a doctor, Pilates can be a really good place to go because Pilates really works and strengthens the core in 3D, which includes the muscles along the lumbar spine that attach to the vertebra and are there to kind of help hold those vertebrae in place. So you can see how if those muscles, in conjunction with the rest of the core, was nice and strong, that would help kind of stabilize the spine, allowing the herniated disc to begin to repair itself, because they do sometimes they don't, sometimes they do, but they can kind of be corrected a little bit, and then the fluid just kind of like everything just kind of squeezes back in. And like I said, sometimes this happens, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it happens and then people get overzealous and then they kind of can herniate the disc over again. So it's usually a weak point or a sensitive spot for the remainder of your life, unfortunately. But you can have it strengthened and make sure that you're getting it nice and protected, okay? So it doesn't have to be a problem forever. It's just something that you want to be aware of. So Pilates is great for working your herniated discs, particularly in the lumbar spine, because it works the core in 3D, including the multifida that line the spine. And if you want to learn all about how to activate and engage the core, that's exactly what my Pilates Breath and Core workshop will be on, that's going to be happening on Friday at 10 a.m. So we're working on building this 3D column of support. As you do this, you really want to work the spine in a supported neutral. So that's going to help strengthen all the muscles of the spine. And you're probably not going to have enough strength in order to just go straight into working the low back in an unsupported neutral, but that is where we're getting to. And so a supported neutral, and again, I'll be talking about this in my workshop, is where you I usually use a dish towel, and I'll roll the dish towel up just so it mimics the curve at my low back, so that when I'm lying down on my back, I can place that small towel, rolled up hand dish towel, at my low back and just feel nice and supported there. So I don't want to feel like the towel is pushing the spine around, and I don't want to feel like the back has to push down into the towel. It's just to give the low back some support while you do some basic movements. And so you're kind of bringing the floor up to meet the back, right? Mimicking the curve of the spine. And then once you have that, you would want to start with some really basic, gentle strengthening exercises for pelvic stability. And I happen to have a lot of those on my Create Move Pilates YouTube channel, so I'm going to list some that I offer there. Marching would really be the place to start, and I offer that in my Pilates Essentials course, where I talk all about the different neutral positions and the basic pelvic stability and strengthening, the fundamentals that give you the building blocks of what you need. And that's 15 lessons, and it's only $47. So if you are coming back into Pilates because you have suffered maybe from a herniated disc or other injury, you'd want to start there. So marching, which is offered in there, and then the Pilates for low back strength, and I'll include links to these in the comments when I'm done talking. I just got an email and it's like bing. So you want to do the Pilates for low back strength using your supported neutral. Testing neutral for happy hips would also be a great one for you. Side lying legs would be a great one because you want to give support in all directions, and that includes your hips and your booty. So you would want to do side lying legs, although that isn't one that you would use supported neutral for. And then Pilates dying bug and Pilates small single leg circles. So those are all good ones for kind of strengthening the back with a supported neutral. You'd also want to try opposite arm leg reach once you've gotten that sensation of what supported neutral feels like, because that one is working your neutral when you're in an all fours position. The other thing that you would want to do is you want to kind of alleviate some of this tension in the low back. So again, after you've been approved by a doctor to come back to some fitness, you would want to do some pelvic tilts, because you want to kind of pull the fluid and pull the disc away from the spinal cord. So if what's happening is you have this herniated disc and it's over herniated this way, right? And you're pushing everything this way into the spinal cord. What you want to do is you want to lengthen that low back and kind of pull everything away and stretch that so that everything has a chance to kind of move back into place here. And so you would do that through pelvic tilts and through bridging. And I have lots of different kinds of bridging on the Create Move Pilates YouTube channel, but you'd want to just start with your basic pelvic tilt and your basic bridging. Now, it's really important to do that properly, because a lot of people will do their pelvic tilts, which is basically where you're lying on the floor with a neutral spine, and you tilt your pelvis so that the low back hits the mat, right? So from this position, again, it's just this. And if you're lying on the back, my whole low back would hit the mat there. Now, a lot of people do this from squeezing the glutes, and that is not the best way to get into it, because then you're kind of creating tension in the low back. You want to do this because you've used your core. So this is another way that you're using the low belly to kind of support the back and get some length there. So you'd want to start with a supported neutral, and then when you were ready to get some movement back there and you felt comfortable and safe and had your doctor's approval, then you can do some pelvic tilts and build your pelvic tilts up into bridging, which will help strengthen the booty and the hamstrings in a way that's not so squeezy, but nice and more functional. So we've got supported neutral, pelvic tilts, bridges. The next thing that you're going to want to do is to take the pressure of the upper body off of the lower body and the low back. So a lot of times we end up kind of seated and rounded like this, and this actually pushes the gravity and the weight of our upper body onto our lower body, which you can kind of just see how that would happen, right? This is not resisting gravity, and so all of the pressure is on my spinal column. We open up here, we get some resistance of gravity, and we get some of that weight off of our low back. Now, the only thing is that a lot of the traditional extension exercises will kind of compress the low back, right? So if you're thinking swan, where your belly's on the mat and you lift your head and your heart off the mat and you kind of come in this position here, there can be a lot of compression of the low back, right? So you don't really want to do a full swan. Definitely not until you've gotten a lot of that pelvic stability and you really feel that you are totally over your herniated disc. What you want to start with is just a chest lift off of the mat. Where you would think length over height and you would just kind of lift the chest up, strengthening the low back, okay, or strengthening the mid back. I talk all about chest lifts and rockets again in Pilates Essentials, but I'm going to see if maybe I can angle the camera so that I can show you what I'm talking about right here. So just give me a second. I'm going to lift up here. Whoops. And then we're going to tilt this down pretty far, and that looks pretty good. Okay, so a chest lift. What you're trying to do, and now this actually is another moment where you could have a supported neutral. So if you're on your back, you have that at the low back, and if you're on your front, you put it right at the top of your pelvis, that rolled up towel, and that will help the length in the low back and keep it nice and long while you practice lifting just the head and the heart off of the mat. Just like that. So you're lengthening away, and look, I'm not lifting very high so that I'm not compressing the low back, because if I go into a swan or something where I lift really high, you can see that low back is not going to enjoy that if it's already feeling compressed. So it's more about keeping this pubic bone pushed down and the navel lifted to keep that low back long, which again, a rolled up towel could help you do while you lift your head and your heart off the mat. So that is the chest lift that I'm referring to. And again, I'm going to take this guy down so that you can see me a little better. And then once you have got all of that together, then you can start stretching and moving the back in more dynamic ways. And I would start with maybe some spine stretch forward, which is available on the YouTube channel, Create Move Pilates YouTube channel, Pilates Spine Stretch Forward, or C-curve abs, which is also on the Create Move Pilates YouTube channel. And then I would go and progress that into a roll down all the way to the mat. I would not roll up for a while because that's going to be a little harder on the low back. You just want to practice that rolling down and really get the C-curve abs before you go all the way down to the mat. So that could take, up to 6 weeks before you really have the strength and the mobility of the back to get into that. So just a quick overview. Pilates for a herniated disc in the lumbar spine where the fluid is pressing into the spinal cord. You would want to do a supported neutral with all the exercises I've mentioned and I will link to below. You're going to want to do pelvic tilts led from the front of the body, bridges, chest lifts, rockets, no swan, C-curve abs, roll downs when you're ready, no roll ups, and side lying legs. So, and lots of side lying legs in all different positions. And I have lots of side lying leg videos on the Create Move Pilates YouTube channel. So I don't see any other questions coming through today, but this is a live Pilates Q&A. So if you do want to show up live and ask me questions, I can model exercises. You can hop on with me and show me exactly what you're talking about in your own body. This is really a moment for you to take advantage of me. It's kind of like the Create Move Pilates online studio office hours. So make sure that you come and join me live next week if you're catching this in a replay. If you are catching this in a replay, you know you won't be able to make it next week, Tuesday at 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. You just want to leave your question in the comments below, and then I will answer it next week. So we're just kind of getting back into Pilates talk, so I'm hoping over time more of you will be able to join me live. Thank you so much for joining me today and watching. I did see a few people watching me live, but you know, it's dinner time. It's busy time of day. Every time of day is a busy time of day. Everybody wants me to do stuff at different times. So, you know, we just do what we can, right? So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that I get to see you around again soon. Have a really great evening. Bye.